Hey all, Bluegrass Cyclist here. I wanted to do a short little video about the Shimano recall that's happening right now. I had an affected 11-speed Ultegra crank that I submitted at a bike shop for the recall that's happening right now, and I did just get back my new crank from them. When you are submitting your crank, it depends on if it's Ultegra or Dura-Ace what you have to turn in. Now for both, you don't have to turn in the chain rings. The chain rings get taken off the crank, and then you keep those. But on Ultegra, you only have to turn in the drive side crank, which has the spindle and everything on it. And that's because with Ultegra, only the drive side is Hollowtech. The non-drive side, the left crank arm, is solid. Dura-Ace, both crank arms are Hollowtech. So if you have a Dura-Ace that is affected by the recall, you do have to turn in both. So I only turned in the drive side. I had signs where it was starting to separate up in the spider area. It did not fail on me yet. And when we cleaned it up, actually cleaned all the dirt off of it and everything, the soapy water was seeping out of the seam on the crank arm. So it was a clear indication that this was getting water inside and it was starting to fail. So submitted that, and I just got my new one in, and there are a couple things that surprised me. First off, it comes with chain rings. In fact, it's a whole crank set. I got the left arm and everything, but it comes with chain rings, which is awesome. Second thing, this is the new 12-speed design. It's the exact shape. The beveling and everything is exactly the same as the new 12-speed stuff from Shimano. Same color, it's the same design. So I am like 99% sure that this is actually a 12-speed crank. It is labeled 11-speed right there, but I think, and you gotta think about this from Shimano's perspective, they spent all this time R&Ding a new 12-speed crank. They knew about the possibility of the failures on the old design, so they probably spent a lot of time making sure that this crank is not gonna fail, because they didn't want to release a whole new group set and then have issues years down the road where they have to do yet another recall or whatever the case is. So you got to think they developed the crap out of this crank. And then you got to think, for this recall, they're not going to, make all new 11-speed cranks just for the recall. They have some 11-speed Ultegra cranks sitting around that you could buy if you wanted, that were the old design, but I'm sure they don't have enough to do the recall, and they're not producing them at the level for the recall. So I would be willing to bet that when they got ready to do this recall, they said, hey, we're already in production for the 12-speed crank. Let's just do a whole bunch of them that are printed with 11-speed, and let's send them out to the customers. Because, 11-speed and 12-speed, the chain is so close in size. Like, the difference in chain size is so tiny. And the distance between the small chainring and the large chainring on the 11-speed, and then the difference of that from the 12-speed has got to be so minute that with that front derailleur, it's not going to make a difference in shifting, So I'm sure they just said, hey, let's just do some special printed 11-speed that are actually 12-speed cranks. And this crank is actually labeled FC08, which is like a non-series. That's not a series number for Ultegra anywhere. Going forward, if I ever have to replace these chain rings, I suspect I don't know if they'll make ones like these that say 11-speed that you'd be able to buy down the road by themselves. But I suspect you could just buy 12-speed chain rings, put them on, and then you'll be fine. because I do think this is just a 12-speed crank printed as 11-speed. Another thing I noticed is that inside the spindle, and they might do this for all of the 12-speed cranks currently. I've never noticed it on any crank before, but I've yet to take apart a 12-speed crank to see. But they fill it in with plastic. I think it's a hollow plastic, or it's even just a cap. I don't know if it goes the whole length of the spindle, or if it's just a cap just here on this portion, but it's recessed in. And I think it's there to stop water getting in. Again, I don't think they wanted to give any chance of these things to fail. So they probably did everything they could to make sure no water or any kind of thing can get in there to ruin these. So they did that. And I have here my 11-speed 105 crank, the R7000 series. So you can take a look at the difference in like the beveling of the spider and how it matches up with the chain rings. So I think because they went this route and just gave us 12-speed, they gave us new chain rings too, because the old chain rings aren't going to match up with the new spider. Yeah, the bolts probably match up, but like the beveling isn't going to, and it's going to look terrible. Plus, the Ultegra 11-speed was like gray colored, not black. At least mine was. I can't remember if there's a newer version of Ultegra that's gray, or that's black off the top of my head. But, you know, the chain rings aren't going to match this new one, so they sent a whole new crankset, which I think is pretty cool. This, just the right side with the cap, weighs 514 grams. And then this 11-speed 105 weighs 534. Not a huge weight savings between the two. I feel like, and I can't remember for sure, so I could be wrong, I feel like my original Ultegra 11-speed crank was lighter than this one. I could be wrong. Maybe like 500 grams. Can't remember. So not a huge weight savings am I gaining. I had this on my bike, my outdoor bike. I'm gonna put this one on. I'm not a weight weenie by any means, but I don't mind shaving off grams anywhere I can. So I'm gonna put this one in. I also have no qualms about using Shimano Ultegra now. Some people might think, well, their previous ones failed, why would you use a new one? Because I'm sure they put so much time and effort into making sure that these aren't going to fail. I put full trust in it, that it is designed not to fail. I mean, anything can fail, and quality control, you know, you could end up with a bad one for some reason that might break on you, but, you know, that's true for anything at all in this world. But I have full faith in this. I'm going to put it on my bike. I think it's cool that it's the new design, and yeah. So go ahead and leave some comments if you want, chatting about it. You know, we could say that Shimano is not doing the recall correct. They should just completely recall the cranks for anybody that has the ones that are affected. A full recall. Not this voluntary thing that's happening right now. But, you know, that's neither here nor there, because it is what it is. Shimano's doing what they're doing. It might turn into a full recall because I hear there's some lawsuits happening about it. So maybe it will turn into that, but right now it is what it is. If you have a crank that you believe is affected, or you know it's affected, take it to a bike shop, get it submitted. Even if it's not failing, get it submitted, because they still keep track of the cranks that pass the inspection from a bike shop. And I think that's because down the road, if yours does fail, Shimano can say, oh, well, they did bring it in for the voluntary recall and it passed. We can still give them a new one. But I wonder if you don't ever get it submitted, and then it does fail, like when the recall's over or whatever, if they won't send you a new one. So I highly recommend getting yours checked out if it is one of the affected ones. If you're not sure, you just have to look at the production code. There's a list online. You just have to find it. It's the little letters here. You look for that. If that's one of the ones in the list on your Ultegra or Dura Ace crank, then get it checked out. Okay? Even if it's not, even if there's nothing wrong with it right now, take it into a shop, get it checked out. Alrighty. Well, leave comments if you feel the need, and I'm gonna go put this on my bike. Happy riding.